Welcome to Made Up of Wires. We are decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Yesterday we started working on a function related to the Medusa cutscene, and we're going to keep working in that space today. I was able to get a match this morning looking at some of the things, so I'll go over what I needed to change to get that last little bit fixed. If you're not familiar with the Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project, you can go to soten.z.dev, where you'll find progress on many of the overlays that we've been working on. Is RBO3 here yet? No, not yet. I did submit a PR to get this added. So hopefully we'll have that soon. At soten.z.dev, you'll find the progress on the overlays that we've been working on. There's a lot of them, and we're only a little bit of the way through, but we have a little bit of each of the types in the game. You can find a link to the GitHub repo where you'll find all the code that we've decompiled so far, and you'll find a link to the Discord server, where we're chatting about how the project's going, different things about Soten, things like that. Iketsui, nice to have you on the stream. Rise Remy, good to have you as well. Sorry for butchering your name. So yesterday we were looking at some Medusa functions, and let me go over what the fix was yesterday. So let's see if I can revert just a bit and get to what we had. We had this kind of funny condition here where we're checking where the current entity's position is versus where we are in the scroll window, and then if that's less than about halfway across the screen, we're going to do this logic here related to the time attack controller, otherwise not. And usually these are done inline, and it's a pretty simple condition, but in the case of this PlayStation version, I had to resort to using some funny math. Most of the time, what happens here is you're just comparing x versus less than 0, or comparing this expression to less than 0, but that wasn't matching for me for whatever reason. This does match. It's kind of gross. We see on the PSP version we're doing a slightly different comparison, which matches there as well. Sometimes you're a slave to the compiler, and this is one of those times. So I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to keep what's there because that is a match, and possibly somebody will have some good ideas when I submit a PR. Orcam, good to have you back on the stream. So let's find our next function to decompile. So we're down to, I think, what, 5 or 6 left in here? 4 left in here? Nope, 6. So we'll stay in this this main logic of this Medusa cutscene. I might pull up DuckStation. I finally had a chance to look at Mottzilla's Soten save editor. And it was a very different tool than I was expecting. It's actually written as a PlayStation game, and it comes with a bin and a queue, and you load it up in your emulator, and you can edit your saves directly that way. So I have an anti-chapel save. I'm actually not sure the path to Medusa from where I am, so there might be some trial and error there to find Medusa. But let's look here and see what the next one is going to be. So we're still looking at the US PlayStation version of the game. And I'm going to, I can look at all of these files because everything in the non-matchings directory is going to be a function. And I like to use, if you've been on the stream before, I like to use command line tools for just about everything. Just the way my career went, I found that working in a terminal is more universal, and those were the tools that I ended up enjoying the most. All right, so we have this 998 function that we can look at. That's relatively small. I don't know if we should we just dive into the big state machine? Let's do that. This will be more complicated, and we probably won't get a match completely today, but it'll give us the next couple days worth of decompilation. Is this even the first? No, it's not. So the main entry point is here for this Medusa function. Let's see. I want to see that this is what the primary entity is. It might not be. So here we're going to look at data. And what I want to see is in this header. What are the functions that we're calling into? So 438 is the main one. Is there? I don't think there's any cutscene for Medusa. Let's look at that one. So that's the first entity that's defined in this list. So we have about 14 or 15 cases in our switch. Oh, there is some text in here. Okay. So I'm gonna start a new scratch in decomp.me, and I think I'm going to let's play the game a little bit and see if we can get a save point right around that Medusa boss. So I'm copying the, if you're new to the stream or new to watching on YouTube, I'm taking assembly from the game that has been extracted from this Medusa boss overlay and using a tool called decomp.me, which will do a decompile pass. And this function's actually not that bad. So it will attempt to do an initial decompilation mechanically, but usually there's more that we need to do as developers with specific knowledge of the game and how it's structured to fix things up, and this one is no different. So there's some types that the decompiler couldn't figure out, either because we don't have them defined or because something else was preventing it from figuring those out. So we can do a few things to help coerce the decompiler into getting us a little closer. So I'm going to do that. I set the no built-in option because the compiler redefined some libc functions that are part of the SDK. I want to do things like give nice names to the arguments, so I'll put those in the context. The context is like a header file that the decompiler will use to come up with names and types for things. Let's see what else there is. I screwed something up. The last thing I see is that there is a type that isn't known. We're getting a void pointer on line 17. Arc 17, okay. So this is, I should have fixed this while I was copying it over. This is going to be an entity. And we just know that because the functions that are in this list at the beginning of an overlay are all things that take entity as the first argument. Let's see if there's anything else that's worth fixing. So now I'm going to decompile this again using the automated tools. And one more time. I want to fix that. And we'll see what kind of... okay, so the decompiler gave us something that compiles. As you saw at the beginning, the decompiler doesn't always give us something that will completely decompile or compile. And rarely does it give us anything that compiles back to exactly the same thing. So we have our target assembly that we want to get to, and then our assembly that we're currently generating. And there are certainly differences between the two that we'll have to resolve. There's about 8,000 edits that need to be done, and that number seems big, but that's not really indicative of how many changes we'll have to make. I'm going to switch over to DuckStation, and then we'll try to get into this and see where this function is being called. And I'll play Castlevania poorly for all of you. Let me make sure that I have the right window here. I spent a lot of time decompiling Symphony of the Night without actually going through and playing it. And so it's fun to load it up every once in a while and play. So let's do that. I can show you Mozilla's tool as well. So, this is my save. I'm not sure what's going on. Why can't I transform into that? Oh, these are all off, that's why. Are there times where you want some of these relics off? Besides the familiars? Isn't, why am I not turning into bat? Oh, maybe I won't do this. Because, one, I'm not good at the game, even though I like it. But two, I was hoping that save point was near Medusa. But, no, not down there. Well, I'll get that save tomorrow. I'll get that load state tomorrow, where I can come back and then we can debug. Let's go back to code, which I can accomplish. All right, so let's see where we are. So when we're decompiling this, there's a few things that we need to do to set things up before we can keep going. You don't have to do these things. This is just the order that I like doing them. There are several of these symbol definitions. We need to change those to, typically it's changing them to struct access. So any of these that we see up here, player, position, this is going to be accessed by struct instead of directly by that symbol name. And we just use those symbol names to make it easy to find those different locations. In some cases, this will, I'm just going to do a find and replace for these. In some cases, this will result in code that's more closely matching. In other cases, it makes no difference. And when it makes a difference versus when it doesn't is not always obvious. The other ones that are often there are GAPI, but I don't see any of those. GPlayerX is actually not one that I'm familiar with. I'll come back to that one. That seems like it should be player like a X field on the player macro, but it works as is. So with those out of the way, the next thing that I typically try to do is start removing as many temporary variables as possible, because most of the time those temporary variables are unnecessary, and they will removing them allows us to match code more quickly, or get a match at all. In this case, this particular variable, the reason I'm keeping it, just renaming it, is because when I took it away, passing this field directly as a parameter to this function caused a load of a, let's look at it again, this will introduce well drat. Of course, now it doesn't do it. I thought it was doing a... Oh. I screwed something else up. Line 16, temp v1 is gone. Got rid of the wrong variable. Okay, let's back up. All right, so let's replace all of temp s1 with params. I said I can't play the game, but I can decompile it, and that turned out to be not true either. So here's the load half unsigned instruction that I was talking about before. So this is loading an unsigned 16-bit value, which is what params is. Params is kind of an arbitrary bit field that's used differently depending on what the entity is. And it's defined as an unsigned 16, but the way that the code was originally written, we need it as a signed 16, which is why the decompiler put this cast in place. If we do the assignment beforehand, we get it loaded just as a half, ignoring the sign or unsignedness in this case. And so we can pass it that way without any other tricks, which seems most likely. For the most part, this code is relatively straightforward and doesn't use a lot of tricks except for unions. So when there's tricks, usually that's a sign that it's something else probably should be done. So we can get it to compile and get a match in some cases with code that seems clever, I'll say. But usually the clever code, when we take it over to the PSP version and look at it there, is wrong. So here we can get rid of this. We actually can't get rid of this var v0. So this var v0 is going to be a y value, and it looks like we're taking this var v0 at least a few different places in this. The PSP version might give us some additional insight here, but it looks relatively safe to just call this y and save it as a variable. Get rid of this cast. I want to look here to see whether or not there is anything else going on. So there is this, and we could try putting this back. Here we're doing a shift left and then a shift right. That actually suggests to me that this is a 32-bit value, and if it's a 32-bit value, this may just be happening in line. All right, so we're doing shift left. So basically we're promoting this to it looks like we're promoting it to a 32-bit. But then casting it back down as a 16. Often these shifts like this are used for clearing out either the top or bottom bits. So I'm missing something here. Let's keep moving on. Oh, this is we can get away with just using the absolute value macro here. Yes, yes. So this is being called as a. It looks like I don't have this. Defined. So let me find that. Not quite. Let's do this. And there's some trial and error in this, as always. Okay, that looks better. Thank you. So what I was doing here, I initially wrapped the expression in absolute value. So when you're expanding macros in C, this, whatever the argument here is, literally transposed multiple times into this expression. And so additional instructions that related to that then are being evaluated. Because there's nothing that can be statically evaluated here, the compiler can't there are things that it can't necessarily infer, but taking the absolute value out later seems to work fine and gets us a little closer. So we have some register mismatches. We won't worry about those right now. The other thing that I usually like to do early on is find where these go-tos are. There are go-tos or seemingly go-tos within the code base, but they're not common. And so when we see go-tos, usually it's just the optimizer coming through and saying, jumping to this location and executing this code is cheaper than me repeating it over and over. And that's what we have here. So this block 34 is just incrementing step. So it's a pretty cheap replacement. We have one here, block 33. We'll get to that in a second, and down here as well. And then when cases in a switch end up just returning, I like to replace those with breaks. There's nothing wrong with returning. I just find it more straightforward. So we have one more variable here of our v1. I think after we expand these go-tos, we should be able to get rid of that as well. So block 34 now is gone. So then block 33 is taking this var v1, and so the optimizer came through and said the only difference between all of these different versions, the 3 different versions of block 33, is what we're setting the x value of tile map to. So we should be able to get rid of that after we've expanded it in each of those places. This one actually turned out to be very simple. The only other thing that I think I may try to fix is these additional cases. We saw with the function yesterday that these actually had been expanded in the PSP version. So it's likely that even though these things do the same, have the same code, and the optimizer has chosen to pull those out into the same cases, that those are probably duplicated. So we have one more of these var v1s. So we're already at 98%, so that's pretty good. Actually, the only things that I see different already are immediate values. So it looks like we probably have a match already. I'm just going to go through and do that final cleanup, though, of the out-of-order cases. So with these, we do have to duplicate this code here. That's fine. I'm not very concerned with that. And like I said, that optimizer finds that and does the right thing. We could look at the PSP version, but there might be logical differences between the two, but other than that, this is very straightforward. So I'm not terribly concerned with that. This one actually went much quicker than I was expecting. Oops. It goes longer than expected when you are hitting the wrong keys, though. This 2 and 4, I am gonna split those as well. All of these cases are simple enough that I like the idea of reading through each of the cases. The fact that they're identical, I don't think is as important. All right, let's see if there's anything else in here that's worth looking at. var v1 we should be able to get rid of now. All right. So let's take that over and see if we get a match. That absolute value function, it seems odd that it's in the, where was that? This one, what header was that in? Seems odd that it's in the servant header. Servant is the name for familiars. I might want to move that. So we'll paste that in and get rid of our include macro. And we match. Great. So that was pretty easy. Let me see if getting rid of that define. No. So let's move this into common. Because it's a relatively generic macro, and we have other math macros in here already. Let me just look through these and see. If there's anything more obvious. Yeah, common seems like a relatively good place for it. So I'm going to take it out of servant and put it in common. Servant already includes common. And actually, I'm going to move this by the clamp. Macros. And actually this, while I'm here, this should be including rbo3.h. All right, so that one works great. So one less in here. Let's move on to the next one. So we'll kind of do the same thing. What is the next smallest? Or we can go back to that header and look at what is the next. Do I have that open anymore? No, of course not. What is the next in the defined set of entities? Are you trying to run Windows 2000 on bare metal? That is a feat that I would not attempt. I actually found a... I 179C is the next one, so we'll do that one next. Oh, that's the big one. All right, this should be fun. I found a Access 2100 network camera, circa 2001-ish. And I was trying to get that set up, and none of the programs work in Windows 10. None of them work in Wine. And so I do have a Windows XP computer that is a pretty fresh install, and I'm going to try to install it there. DOSBox can run Windows, especially like a Windows NT. That was a big thing in the 2000s. You could get VMware for Linux. Was it VMware? Did Virtual PC run in Linux around 2000? I don't remember. At least VMware. Maybe Box. I don't remember. I remember I had a professor in college who ran a Windows VM, but you could only run Windows 98 at the time in a Windows VM, and Windows NT, I don't think they have the hardware support for it yet. Okay, so there is one string in here that we have to be aware of. But other than that, this looks like a pretty straightforward. Oh, was that NT96? Or NT4, I mean, sorry. That you could upgrade to from 98? Alright, so we're going to do a new scratch. So this one's a little bigger, but still not terribly complicated. All these are actually relatively straightforward. So we have some declarations that we don't have in the context that we'll need to define. And as we define some of those, these are pretty easy functions to find the declarations for. As we define those, we should be able to get something from the decompiler that's a little nicer. I did have one NT 3.5 box that we used in a lab that I worked in. That's a trip using the Windows 3 interface on Windows NT. So I'm just looking for these declarations, prototypes, however you want to call them. I'm not sure where they are. Oh, U32. No, U8. The decompiler wasn't able to find these or figure out what the function signatures for these are. So come on. I'm doing that for it. Yeah, RAM was excessively expensive in the 90s. I think my 486, I think I maxed that out at maybe 4 megs of RAM, which meant I could play Doom in Windows. Otherwise, if you had, I think Doom wanted probably 1 meg of RAM, but you had to run it directly from DOS, if I remember correctly. 8 megs would have been gigantic. A CDR in the 90s was also expensive. All right, let's see if these declarations are going to work for me. I actually had a 1 gig hard drive, probably around 1997 or 98, and it was given to me by a family friend who had claimed that she had gotten a computer virus, probably from like SneakerNet shareware disks, shareware. All these things don't exist anymore. All these boomery things. You could subscribe to like mail order services where you'd get a disc and then people would copy those discs and trade them. And anyway, she had some issue with her computer and this hard drive was unreadable on it. And so I took it and just formatted it, and it worked fine. And I used that for years, and it wasn't an issue. And I was in high school at the time, so I didn't have any money, especially not for a 1 gig hard drive. Oh my goodness. I think the earlier hard drive in that might have been, I don't think it was as small as 240 megs. Oh, SCSI, that was too fancy. The first, we did have IDE, an IDE CD-ROM that I added. I knew people who had parallel port CD burners, and they were just awful, Okay, so we have a few things here that we need to figure out what they are. The decompiler couldn't do it for us. So we have these 2 variables. The way that this is being constructed down here looks an awful lot like one of the functions we worked on earlier in this Medusa code. So I'm going to look to see if maybe we already have come across this. Um, 801.8.064.8. Oh, I'm so dyslexic. I was looking at these things. How is this not the same as what I just pasted in? It is not. So let's try to find that variable. I did it again. This one. These have got to be the same number. No, they're not. Still not the same number. Three. I want to see if we can tell what this is from its definition here. So Splat thought this was bytes. The only thing that makes me think that maybe it's not bytes and maybe something else is that there's 4 zeros at the start, which looks an awful lot like a 32-bit null. But it could be. Oh, and that's what we saw in that other one. It was it was a byte array, but it was not structs, but just consecutively in order. XY, height width or width height, one of the 2. And I do want to see. I'm gonna go with signed for now. And then it looks like very similar to the to what we have here, where there's an unsigned version that followed. So I'm going to take these. I'm going to move all of these to the context. They may have to come back, but this will allow me to decompile one more time and hopefully get a little closer to something that compiles. So we still have some errors. Let's see if we can figure those out. So line 128, unknown 50. This is probably coming from one of the extension fields. So this, because this is a new boss, we may have to create a new extension. So these are going to be an entity, and we want to see if, no, 50 is too early. So these will be in game. Oh, this is just animation frame index. That's odd that the decompiler didn't figure that out. Not complaining, easy to fix. We have a few more of those. 152. So then on 262, maybe something a little more complicated. Okay, so this is that same pattern of using this array of 8-bit values and just kind of iterating through it. So we'll do something similar here. And we'll even name it the same things. Yeah, overburn is something that I haven't thought about in a very long time. Oh, drat. All right, 86%, that's not bad. Let's look at this bottom part here. This looks like it all came out really nicely. There's I don't think there's going to be anything more that needs to be fixed there. Famous last words. All right, so now we're going to kind of do some of the same cleanup that was done before. Any of these things that should be struct access, we're going to try to find those and fix them. I'm not seeing a whole lot of those, but actually we can just get rid of that, and then it'll show us all of them, 79. So this looks like this may have been renamed. So let's find G player. There was a field in here called status. Or, sorry, there now is a field in here called status. So we need to find where that is. My context is out of date. So that's after unknown 08. Nope, not that. Yeah. And it looks like I need the player status, player state status, enum as well. What do I want to do here? I want to take my selected buffer and what I'm going to do instead is just do this offline where I can I could use tmux. Sorry, still working on copy-paste integration between Linux host and my Mac client. There we go. What is it complaining about? Four three six three 4363. Oh. Do I have this redefined somewhere? Parse error before 0001. Hey, Emma Wilson. Nice to have you on the stream. Just trying to debug some issues with why my context is not happy with this. Yeah. So we're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I need to get this. Awesome. Yeah, so we're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night using a tool called decomp.me, where we're trying to get RC code to match what was being compiled there, and just kind of right now I'm debugging some issues that I'm having with the parser for this context 4363. I'm not sure why it doesn't like that value. It's almost as if something else got into my... Actually, we don't need any of these values right now anyway. So I'm not going to worry about those two. Yeah, I stream Monday through Thursday, about an hour and a half, doing decomp. All right, so we're going to be... we got through that. Let's see what else we have. We now have the status field. And we're going to keep going through and find some of these other ones that we don't have yet. I hope to achieve my aim in streaming. That that is my goal in life. Hey, entry gravity well. Fred, good to have you. So yeah, now I'm just going through, and we have these symbols defined to make this part easier to identify these common symbols, but we need to change them to struct access rather than just using the immediate symbol name, which will give us the correct instructions for those. And I screwed up somewhere. Tile map instead of tile maps. Right. And one more. 225. So this is looking at, let's go through and find this. So this is looking at the second controller and looking for button OX80 being pressed. Let's see what button that is. Oops, wrong tab. The square button. So if you're in this Medusa boss fight at state 255, sorry, and press the square button, you're gonna get something. What are you gonna get? I don't know. And if you're in And if you press circle button, you're gonna get something. What are you gonna get? I don't know. I cannot reveal my location. I hope your business affairs are going well, though. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? All right, so we're a little further along. Now I'm going to go through and I think start looking at these individual variables and see how many of these we can get rid of just by either getting rid of those statements and making them implicit within an expression, or was magst du in deiner Freizeit, Emma? I was seeing where I was going, but it was just getting annoying. So, so here we're allocating entity. So this one we'll just call entity, and my guess is that most of these can probably reuse the same variable. So up top, I'm just kind of skimming through. Up top, we're mostly matching. So here we have a decrement. 80 is possibly a timer. Yeah. So this is a pretty common idiom that we're seeing during weapons. So we're decrementing a timer, and then this shift ends up going away when we do the comparison, and we can do this inline. Let's try to figure out see if we can figure out what that field name is, if it's defined on something else. I mentioned earlier that we might have to define a new extension because this may be the Medusa boss entity. And there might not be anything that's defined here or that we can reuse. I'm not sure. So I'm going to just go through and see if any other entities are using this as a timer. We have speed in one of them. This one is using it as a timer. Let's see what this is. So Gaibon Slagra, that makes sense. It could be that bosses have a similar structure to one another. I will use this as the starting point, and we can go from there. I'll just use this directly, I think, until we can't. If we can use this Gaibon Slagra extension for everything related to Medusa, defining fields as needed, then we may be able to just rename this as like a boss extension. So let's try that. I need to figure out what that field name is. GS props. Would not have expected that. Actually, let's do this. Any of these we're gonna and so then we're gonna decrement this, do a pre-decrement and then comparison. Actually, we don't even need to do the comparison with 0. We can just do a not there. And let's look at line 81 over here and see if this matches. And yeah, that looks a lot like how the timers and the weapons look as well. Okay, so was that temp fee 0? I think it was. And we see the same thing here, same exact thing. Hey, Dig Down Deep, good to have you. I'm sure in OBS there's a way to see who's on the stream, but I am not adept. So what we're doing here is playing a sound effect, either 7FF or 7FE. Let's look at what those are. I want to make sure that I say the right thing here. Cinemax, that's right. Cinemax has been doing a ton of work, and Dirt Princess, both doing a ton of work on identifying all of these sound effects. And it looks like we don't have any in the 7F range yet, though. So if I had created a save state, we could go through and try to identify which of these sound effects is which. We'll leave them as constants for now and then come back, but we will rename this var A0. We'll call it just SFX ID. So here we have a Z rotation variable. It looks like that one's going to be necessary. A lot of times when these are being set like this, these are just decrementing 13 or incrementing 13 from position X. So we can just do that in line. And no variable should be necessary. and we'll go through and make sure that, yeah, that all is generating the same code, so I'm not too concerned there. Facing left, for the PSP sake, I believe that this is a direct comparison against 0 is not necessary. On the PlayStation 1 side, that compiles out to the same thing, so it doesn't make a difference. Yeah, we'll keep going. So that RV03 is gone. And I say this quite a bit, but we're not interested at the moment in whether or not this... not terribly interested in whether or not we're matching exactly. If there's things like that where we're getting rid of a variable and that potentially changes due to some control flow, I like to check those because control flow can add complications that can be trickier to reason about the further away you get from the mechanically decomped version. Here we have this block. It's a go-to here for setting this position. We're using the variable just so that we can have this block and be able to jump to it. I don't think that any of that is necessary. I do want to see. Oops. I do want to see if that block is being used elsewhere. It's not, so we can get rid of all of that as well. Those are nice when that works out like that. Oops. So here we have a subtraction for the x value, another absolute value case, like was seen before. I'm going to pull that out into, we'll call it x. We got to be a little careful because temp A0 is reused. So I'm going to selectively replace those. Though this A2 is, or A02 is being used in exactly the same way. I shouldn't say exactly. Is it exactly? No, very similar way. So that could be X as well. I don't know if it's worth getting that absolute value code in here yet. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to just continue on with getting rid of these variables. So this is going to be a for loop. And is there anything special we need to consider here? So I'm going to create a new index variable. The ordering here might be important. And it's possible that the way this rotation z is being calculated is by doing like hex 400 times I minus hex 200. We'll have to see. First I'm going to get rid of the variable and then we'll see if that's the case. In this I am going to watch the assembly as this goes, just to see. Sometimes these end up being while loops. Yeah, so the ordering of this seems to be important. I'm going to back that out, and for now I'm just going to replace that variable. And I'll come back to the control flow later. Or maybe I'll look at it now. We'll see. There's some differences here that I don't know. We'll come back. All right. So this var v0 is velocity x, but we need to be careful because we have this absolute value x down here. I'll get rid of these first. And then I can safely get rid of, or rename this. This seems superfluous. So we were talking about older technology. Older, not old. Is there old? I'm sure nobody's using parallel port CDRs anymore. Is there other old tech that people still use and can't get rid of? Oh, looks like we got through all of the variables. I keep my zip drive handy. I'm sure all of you do too. What else do I have up here? Dropping stuff. Floppy drive. One of my things that I do while not writing SOTN is I have an app that monitors disk activity and gives you a disk activity light, and I keep all those around so that I can display appropriate disk icons. I use those for testing. So I'm going to go through and get rid of some of these go-tos. This block 53 looks straightforward. When I was doing the project setup streams, I know a lot of people mention they don't have optical drives anymore. I find that somewhat amusing because I've almost all of my systems I can stick an optical drive on within a few minutes and always have them around. I'm young enough that some people incorrectly might call me a millennial, but my interest in physical media, I think, makes me a Gen Xer. Growing up in the Midwest, we were a couple years behind everybody. So I'm pretty sure I fall into the Gen X category. Well, let's see if there's any more of these go-tos. Oh, wow, that's awesome. So I worked in a rapid prototyping lab in the early 2000s, and that's when 3D printers cost tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we had an SGI Indie, either 200 or 300 megahertz. I can't remember which it was, but we'd run SolidWorks on that, and it was so much faster at slicing than any of the Pentiums of the time. Yeah, I think there definitely is some inherent differences. So this one's interesting. So there may be something we can twist out of this to simplify it. Do you do a lot of modeling and entropy gravity well? Or is it admin on those systems? So let's see. So if we're falling down here, I'm considering whether or not, so moving this up will be fine and equivalent, but is there an easier way to get into this condition? Actually, inverting this might make the most sense. So if we're not pressing square, we're going to set the params to 0. And if we are pressing, so let's try this. And we'll look at the all this code is already correct. I just want to simplify it, and I may end up breaking things terribly while I do this, but we'll give it a shot to make this a little cleaner. So if we're not I think this is equivalent logically, but Obviously, we're not compiling to the same thing. I'm going to revert that. I would like to get rid of that go-to. However, with this written the way that it is, it's a perfect match. And so while I don't necessarily like that... Oh, this could be much simpler, much simpler. Let's do this. How about that? Yeah, that's the same. So this looks to me like square and circle on the second controller are affecting the animation frames. Is that a thing? But only when the case is FF. Can we force that for the current step? Is that a known thing in Soten, that you can fast forward and rewind? I don't know if you... Oh, I moved it to the other room. Hold on. I'll be right back. I picked up this Unicomp a couple years ago, and I actually don't use it as much as I'd like because I like my Alps switches more than buckling spring. But have you used one of the modern Unicomps? Yeah, so Unicomp did the manufacturing for the Model M keyboards, and when IBM sold all their stuff to Lenovo, they just kept going and basically kept making the same keyboard. They're modern, they're USB now. They have all the buttons, and you can get them in different key layouts, which is nice. And it's the same, as far as I'm aware, it feels the same to me, the same buckling spring mechanism. Hall effect switches on a keyboard? What would what would give you any tactical response? I don't know if I could deal with that. All right, let's see where we're. 90% doing okay. Oh, that's so gross. No, you need a click. You need the clicky. You need a. So what I like about the Alps switches is the break point. Effectively, is the activation point. And I think that they're probably my favorite. The buckling springs feel so good though, and they have a similar behavior. I really don't like the cherry and all of the things that are now considered like mechanical keyboards. I haven't tried. There's the dome plus spring. I can't remember their name. There's those as well. I haven't tried one of those. There's only so much money you can spend on keyboards in a lifetime, and I think I've exceeded my quota. All right, so let's look at line 22 here. Now I think everything's cleaned up for the most part. We can start looking at instruction differences. So this is actually looking at the next entity. This is one of the issues that the M2C compiler has, and maybe I should file a bug for this after the stream. When it's doing pointer arithmetic, it knows what the type of this is, but it does the incorrect pointer arithmetic. So this is just the next entity. It's not BC entities away. Yeah, custom keyboards is super expensive, and I started going down that path to get a custom ergonomic, and when you're starting to get, I have keyboards that are $150, $150, $300, $400. I can't do that for a keyboard. That's the keyboard that I thought I would like the most was a Matthias Ergo Pro, and that ended up just being okay. So it's a Mac layout, Alps. They call them quiet Alps switches. There's something specific that Matthias made in a split ergonomic, and it feels actually really good. I used it for several years at work, but I'm looking over here because it's right here. I use it on my. It's connected to the Linux box that I use. It just the switches had reliability issues, and when that might have been a $200 keyboard. When you're paying $200 for a keyboard and your keys fail after a couple of years, that's unacceptable. Especially when you can have a Model M or a M122, and or my keyboard, my Apple Extended Pro. It's a 30-year-old keyboard, and it works just fine. Moonlander, eh? I like the sound of that. Yeah, so that what is the project that's based off of? I spent a lot of time. It was probably circa like 2013 or 14. What is that? Is that? I can't remember that project name. You were able to. It was open source, and you could build your own, or you could buy the parts in a kit. Massdrop had kits frequently, and I was so close to pulling the trigger. And there's just mentally, I have something where I need certain keys available without having them on a separate plane. The idea of a planar keyboard in general, like, I don't know. I don't know. Also, any of the like Happy Hacker, what are they? 60% keyboards, something basically that just has the main keypad. I've always liked that idea, but I don't know. Never could pull the trigger. Okay, so we got that fixed. 33. So here, whenever we see like an extra mask, this and immediate with a value, typically that means the decompiler was explicitly doing a comparison against 0. Ha! But in this case, I'm wrong. So what's likely happening here is that animate entity isn't defined in this context. And so we gave the definition to the decompiler, but we don't want the definition. And I'll make a note here. We see this a bunch of places in the Soten code base, where some of these functions just aren't pre-declared, and that's fine in this version of C to use functions without declarations. But when you do that, the implicit function signature is that it's returning a 32-bit integer, and all of the arguments passed in are 32 bits in size. And that works here because we're passing 2 pointers in, which are going to be 32 bits. And we're just checking against 0, and it doesn't matter that this is returning an unsigned 8. Unsigned 8 being a Boolean, typically. So that gets us past that. And that's actually going to probably help with a lot of these anytime animate entity is called. Or at least the return value is checked. So yeah, this Matthias keyboard it's kind of a modified 60%. So I like having arrow keys. 75, I probably could get away with 75. I've used MacBook Pros for a long time, and when they killed the inverted T arrow keys, like that was unconscionable. And then they brought it back because obviously it was a stupid thing to do. But I've had that Bluetooth keyboard, and my son actually uses that for his school keyboard, just the old Apple Bluetooth keyboard. That's a 75% layout, and that's actually no, that's kind of a modified 60% layout, kind of a laptop layout. That's pretty fine. I use that so much that I could see using it on a desktop as well. Ansier ISO. I think it's the. I'm refreshing my memory. ANSI. So I need the keys above the return or enter key. My muscle memory regarding that layout is too ingrained. Yeah, the large return key is a no-go for me. It looks like... So they have an extra key on the home row between enter and... is that right? Yeah. That might work. I just have so much muscle memory though with ANSI. I'm going to play this audio and see if this is... I love that it vibrates the whole keyboard case while it's doing it too. I mean, that basically is just how a Model M works anyway. At our old house, I did some rewiring there and ran some some surround speaker wires in the rear wall of the family room, and I had a it wasn't quite a solenoid, but they use them for is it for car audio? Basically, it's just like a shaker, like a bass shaker, and I stuck that in the couch, and that was awesome because you could have, like, you felt the bass of stuff. We had small kids at the time, but you didn't get the audible volume of the bass, and so we could have kids sleeping upstairs and watch movies and feel them without the loud sounds. All right, where am I? Thinking about keyboards and audio and all kinds of fun. So here we are. Here's another case where we may need to do something. So the extension for this Medusa boss is, right now it's pulling from the 8th bit of that extension, which isn't defined. Let's look at the Salgra and Gaibon. And see if there's anything there. So it's padding it. So these aren't defined yet. We might be able to use something there. Let me go back and look at what this was. No, this is the 8th bit, or 8th byte in the. I'm gonna go over here, and we'll look at that entity. So right now we just have padding there. So this is 4. This will start at 6, 7. Oh no, attack mode. So we do have something there. Let's see if attack mode works. Okay, so our offset is correct still. The only issue is register and where the branch is going. And so it's showing an immediate difference because even though these are the same offset, there's a missing instruction here. So there's a 8 that's being loaded that we need to figure out where it's coming from. Or no, sorry, offset 8. Is that the facing left? No, so V0. This is another one of those cases where we don't have a separate variable for velocity x. We're just setting it here, and then otherwise we're going to set it to negative 8,000. Some of these are nice to look at the PSP version for as well. It's possible that this is being set above and then just negated if that condition is true, but this matches in this case. Yeah, I think it was a butt kicker. Not named that specifically, but same idea. I don't think. Thank you for the reminder. I have been watching the time. I don't have any immediate conflicts today, so I'm gonna go a little longer. Maybe I'll round it out at the hour. 60, 67. So this is that absolute value issue. I'm I'm here on line 67, looking at the differences there. I'm going to pull that absolute value definition in and see if that's going to solve this. Not quite. Oops. There we go. '84 is our next one. So this looks like something similar where we're not setting this. We could try a ternary here and see if that works. Or it's possible that we're not actually setting a variable here. We're just passing those directly. That's more likely. Yep. So that sound effects variable is probably going to go away. 111. So this is interesting and slightly troubling. We're loading the animation frame index, and we have the right offset. However, we're loading it as a 32-bit value. The original was loading it as a 32-bit value rather than a 16-bit value. What may be happening here? This is a fun trick. If I hadn't seen this in weapons, I don't know if I would be able to catch this. What we need to do is look at what else is around the frame index, because we're using a optimizing compiler. It knows that we have two 16-bit values that are back to back, and loading that as a single 32-bit value is going to be much faster. And so if we can do a trick where we can load both of those and do a single comparison instead of two comparisons, then think of the 2 cycles we saved on this CPU. So let's see if we can get this to work the way that we want. Oops, I can do it the other way. So the decompiler had trouble with this, and this is potentially something we're submitting a bug for as well. So we know that this is a 16-bit field, and it follows a 16-bit field, but the compiler is doing a 32-bit load. So it's pulling in both these values and then doing this AND comparison. Clever, but it can be hard to spot. We've seen this scenario as well before. There is this is that same bug related to pointer offsets. When doing pointer arithmetic, you have to take into consideration the size of what the thing being pointed to is, and the decompiler fails at that. And it looks like on 136 we're just going to repeat a lot of the same stuff. So we're doing another frame duration check, and then another add with 32. And it looks like something. Oh, this is that control flow here. I'm not going to spend any more time on that in the stream. Let's see if there's any other complications. Facing left is going to be a knot. Facing left and no direct comparison. So this we're shifting by 10 bits, which is the same as multiplying by 1024. These are fixed values, I believe. I'm going to have to come back to this one as well. I don't want to spend my remaining time here. So here we have a minus equals. And another minus equals. Oh. Maybe not. The greatest MIPS programmer of his time, Benjamin Franklin. Or compiler optimizer. He probably would have gotten a kick out of compilers. I have elementary school age kids, and it's funny the things that they think are normal, like self-driving cars and Jetsons level future stuff. And it's crazy to think, I guess as you get older, you kind of think this way, like back in my day. But some of the technology that we have, even electricity, like basically we've only had electricity in the way that we think of it for 200 years. And in the span of like recorded history, that's nothing. All of this is super new. And so going from Ben Franklin flying a kite and doing the earliest electricity experiments to I'm going to optimize a cycle in a CPU that's running 33 million times a second it's just crazy to think about, mind-blowing. Oh, by the way, that thing running 33 million times a second is a child's play toy. Oops, don't want to fork. Save. Let's see what else we have. It looks like a lot of just really minor cleanup stuff is left. Oh, this is where I didn't want to touch yet. No touching. Any Arrested Development fans in chat? I always like it when these let's go back here. So this is a plus equals 1. Is it different from a increment operator? Yes, it is. Why? Because GCC said it was. Yeah, the first 3 seasons were awesome. I didn't necessarily care for the Netflix reboot, but it could have been worse, I guess. Oh, this one's different. yeah, all of these. It's so funny, I think, when these increment and assign or add and assign operators are used and you generate different instructions. I don't understand the logic in that. Somewhere Richard M. Stallman is saying, of course it works that way. All right, so we're at the end. We do have some additional stack space that is being used that we don't need. We were able to get rid of this sound effects. So there's a little bit more cleanup, but we're at 98%. That's pretty good for a first pass on a relatively large function. This one, I'm going to go back just to remind myself. E4, no, 79C. So this is the biggest function in this Medusa boss set of entities that are specific to the boss. And we're almost done with it. So Medusa will fall pretty shortly. Like I said, I do have a save point now in the anti-chapel, and so I'll play through that tonight and get a load state directly before the Medusa boss, and we can walk through some of this code, sets of breakpoints, and see where that is. Try to trigger this. I would be interested in triggering this square circle on player 2, that stuff, and we'll see where that is tomorrow. If you're just tuning in, shame on you. You should have showed up 2 hours ago when we started. No, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Appreciate everybody who shows up almost every day. It's a lot of fun. Just going through all this decomp with all of you, talking about fun nerd stuff. If you want to know more about decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night, go to soten.z.dev. It's not my project. I'm just a contributor. But I'm having fun doing it, and having fun doing it with all of you. Follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, and I'll be back tomorrow, Monday through Thursday. I'm here decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Every once in a while you'll see me play it poorly, and we'll learn things about the game together. All right, thanks everybody. Adios.